we're not doing Stop Challenge and Choose. So anyway, how about we kind of kick off our time just sharing some health wins? I'd love it if someone wants to share maybe like what this weekend taught them about themselves or a new non-scale victory. Nadia, do you have any cool things you want to share and update us?
It's funny, I just posted me in my wedding dress, which I had not done. So Jeff and I celebrate 10 years of marriage this year, and I'm definitely smaller than the day that we got married. And so we were cinching that dress up last night, and I just look so different. And so I just posted about that on Facebook. But that kind of stuff is just so powerful because I just remember how I felt about how I looked on my wedding day. And you want that to just be such an amazing, you want to feel so beautiful. And so, and I just remember feeling uncomfortable and some of that. And so to put that dress on last night, I was like, I didn't have on any makeup. My hair was full of dry shampoo, but I think I looked prettier than I did on that day. So that was my big weekend takeaway.
I love that. That is so amazing. I remember when I was on program, I had a pair of my my skinny pants. I don't know if you ever have those where you're like, one day I will fit into these jeans again. And I fit in them, and then now all of a sudden they're too big. Because I kept getting healthier. And and I remember how I used to feel in those jeans, which was, yes, they fit. I was insecure and I didn't feel good and I was struggling. Fast forward during the program, when I put those jeans on, I felt so good in my skin. And I think it's because the way that our program's designed, it empowers you to take back your health. It's not a diet. You're not just, not eating or doing this or doing that. Like, you're genuinely creating health and strength from the inside out, so that when you do fit into your wedding dress or those jeans or whatever it might be, you are a totally different person. You've elevated in who you are. And that's a pretty amazing thing. Does anyone else want to share a win? Julie, go for it.
So we had company in on Saturday for lunch with a local friend as well. And they have never been here to our home. We knew them through my husband's brother-in-law's brother. Okay. So they don't really know us all that well. And she wrote me in the inbox this morning. We had a nice lean and green meal. And she said, I'm trying to find the words to say what I want to say. She said, you are an infectious woman. And I mean that in a very positive way. And just our home and it was just so joyful to know we put on a lean and green. She follows me on Facebook, and it was just fun. It's just so fun to influence when you don't even really know that you really are, because you're just living as who you truly are. And it was just, I don't know, it was a super sweet moment for me that's the word that she chose to describe who we are becoming. I thought it was cool.
It's so special. I love that. And for any of you on here who are a client and who are a coach, one thing that I've loved about making it transition from like just doing my health journey to doing it with others is how I've continued my personal development and how I've continued to grow in who I am, to the point where, not just helping people in their physical health, but you're impacting lives, just because you are Stop Challenge and Choosing. And when you go to the grocery store and you meet someone who maybe isn't like the nicest person, it doesn't hit you as hard as it used to, because you are recognizing, hey, I can breathe, I can have water, and I can be a blessing. Like, it's just really cool how that happens. So welcome everyone to our Lifebook Lunch Break. We'll officially kick it off. I listened to a really cool message yesterday. It was about, you've lost it, get it back. And, I've gone through seasons in my life where I literally have felt like I've lost my health, or I've lost this. And wherever you're at on this Monday, I just want to encourage you, like, go get it back. It's, again, like, you're not helpless. Like, you can accomplish the goals you want. Desire doesn't equal your outcome. And we have to know that. It's not enough to just want it, to have the desire. It's the decision and then the application day in and day out that creates the outcome. And so Monday is here. Let's get really clear of desire and decision and shift our desire into a decision, and then get out your calendar and literally let your calendar be your boss, so that you are applying that decision and desire every single day. I am going to pass it off to my good friend, Christina. She's the beautiful blonde with the curls. And I was talking to her earlier this morning, like literally 40 minutes ago. She's one of my clients, and I'm like, hey, can you jump on in 40 minutes and share your transformation, because she's been doing so great navigating her health. So you want to share with us, my friend?
Yeah, sure. And what you were just saying just really resonates with me, as far as desire. I've been, in a place for a while where I'm wanting to get healthier, but I wasn't, doing the action to get me there. And so kind of my story is that I was on program about 3 years ago and had a great, healthy progress. I lost about 25 pounds and, felt really amazing and maintained it for a nice long time. And along the way, life happens and change jobs and stress, and a couple of vacations later, and somehow I managed to be back up around 40 pounds over where I feel my best. And so, kind of beat myself up about it long enough. And as I was starting this time, 40 pounds seemed like it was such a huge goal compared to where I was at before. And so I've been really focusing on just reaching those mini goals along the way. And that's really helped me kind of create momentum and stay motivated, engaged. And it doesn't seem as impossible, because I'm, taking those smaller steps to really make it happen. And at this point, I'm 15 pounds in towards my goal in about 5 weeks. And so, being almost 40% to the way to my goal makes me feel really great. It's even though I'm not at my goal, just shedding that little bit has made a huge difference, whether it's not being afraid to wear like horizontal stripes, or not hiding when I'm taking a picture with my kids, or deleting it because I don't like the way it looks, it's, yeah, Megan, it's totally that, I've really kind of shifted my thinking to that progress versus perfection, because I used to be an all or nothing kind of person, which is why I would, fall off the diet train and, screw up for the next month or whatever. So, really focusing on that lifestyle and, just keeping consistent with those actions. So, I just encourage you to, celebrate those little steps along the way, because even though I know we all would love to, wave a magic wand and have all of our, excess weight be gone tomorrow, it's that mindset and those skills that we're developing between now and then that are really priceless to maintaining it.
Mm-hmm. So good, Christina. I love that. Someone said the other day, they said the journey is the gift. And I'm like, no, it's the outcome, it's the destination. But really, if you blow past the learning and you just try to get to the destination, then nothing's changed. And what will happen is you will go back. And so what I've seen with Christina is that she's gone on vacation. She's dealt with like sick kids, sick husband. She's a teacher in this season, and none of that has become her excuse. If anything, it's become a new layer to her why of, oh my gosh, I'm going back to school in the crazy world, so I need my health to be better than ever. Or I'm going on vacation and I want to fully enjoy the moment, so I'm going to keep nourishing my body instead of, well, I'm going on vacation, I'm going to woohoo. And so I love that. We always want to pile up our desire for change so that our desire for change is greater than our desire to stay the same. So love that, Christina. So now we are going to jump into element 23. We are like literally almost done, guys. Isn't this amazing? So Megan and Brandon, why don't you guys take it away?
Well, it sounds like we're already in element 23 with what you're talking about, Christina, because there's I just hear that the rigidity you're talking about, like everything had to be just so, or things just got away from me and I was 40 pounds up. That's very similar to what was going on in my life, and what he's talking about in this element of like being at 14 years old, like you can function as an adult in this world. That doesn't say very much about our world, does it? That a 14-year-old can get by, right? I would hope that we're all wanting to grow and mature and everything. And what he talks about is really getting clear on our mindset and having a system. I always think of it like a computer system or something like that, where we're able to handle the onslaught, right? Because what you've been able to do, Christina, and all of us during this time, it's not been without resistance. This has been the hardest time in our history, set aside like maybe World War II or something like that, where it's just really, life has just completely gotten turned upside down. And so to be able to do what you talked about doing, and to be able to do what we're all trying to do right now, what we all are succeeding in doing, is creating a bigger capacity so that we can handle when life comes at us a certain way, to not be swayed by it. And if you've not read Stop, Challenge, and Choose, this is a deep dive into stop, challenge, and choose. Before, it's, I love what he says. It's like, we're giving you enough to like go overnight, to pack an overnight bag, right? But now it's like, all right, we're going to live here. We're going to camp here. Let's bring a suitcase. We're going to stay a lot longer here. So, so having that system set up, that was the most attractive thing to me about this program, was that it wasn't just going to teach me how to eat. And we, you know, as coaches doing the assessments, or even as a client where you've had the assessment, you go through all these different dimensions of health. The biggest one is surroundings and mindset and stress, all of that stuff. What you kind of called out, Amy, the habits that we set up create these things, not the food we eat. That's not it. That's just one outlet, right? And so Megan's going to go into some of the things about, you know, deeper dive into stop, challenge, and choose. So head back to element 4, perhaps later after this, to refresh some of the basics in stop, challenge, and choose. But this is going to be a deep dive, right?
For sure. Yeah. That's what I love, this element of mastering your thoughts and your emotions, because think about it. Your thoughts are the precursor to every decision you're making in all of your walks of life,
or lack of
and
decision
all of
making.
your maybe emotional eating patterns, or all those different things. So the more you can start grasping and working on catching those thoughts and kind of making them captive and bending and molding them to what will serve you and serve the people that you love, the better, right? So that's the big thing that we want to have, that new kind of awakening and have that awareness of what are we thinking. And that's one of the biggest keys, is we have like 70,000 thoughts a day, like, but
That's
most
it.
of them are recycled from the days before, from all those previous, and many of them are often negative and self-critical. So you think about that, of like, if we have 70,000 a day that are negative and self-critical, that's what we need to capture, so that we want that long-term success, that long-term outcome that will serve us again and serve the people that we love the most. Dr. A talks a lot about that it is emotional mismanagement, or the inability to successfully navigate our emotions, that's actually thought to be the central cause of all disease and the lack of well-being.
Say that again.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. So the inability, or your emotional mismanagement, is the leading central cause of all disease and the lack of well-being. And there's actually probably only about 5% of people that actually have mastery over their emotions. And so it's the management of your emotions that will actually determine how effective you are at actually installing all of these other habits that we always talk about. So if you're wanting to install these healthy eating, healthy sleep, healthy, motion, all of these other factors that are those precursors to your overall health and well-being, you have to work on this one, or they will not be successfully installed for that long-term success. And so it's those mismanaged emotions like worry, hopelessness, anxiety, depression. They are all as significant a risk factor as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. Isn't that crazy to consider? And why we want to be, if you're not choosing some of those other, detriments to your health, why would we opt and choose this one? This is the one we also need to work on the most too.
Socially acceptable. That's why.
For sure. So this is that, like, many of us, we see all the external work going on, right? Like we see the pounds melting away, we see the inflammation going away, but this is that internal, invisible work that is so important, that again will lead to that transformation, that physical transformation that will be present too. Or even like what Julie was talking about, of these friends just noticing, like, what a difference. Wow, how much you've grown, how much you've changed. And that honestly, I think has a lot more of the long-term kind of paychecks of your heart that you're going to be developing over time. So some of the goals that we want to help you guys kind of start working on and working through is developing emotional literacy. Can you even identify what you're feeling? Sometimes I think feelings are almost like an iceberg, where you'll have one that will show up on the surface, but really when you get underneath the surface, you see all these other emotions at play that are really causing that one to rise up to the top.
And he talks about how that's threatening to a lot of people too, right? In the beginning of the chapter, he's talking about how, are you ready? Are you ready to do this? It's not easy. And in a lot of cases, it can be threatening. And that's that going below that waterline, to really look at those emotions.
For sure. And then the next one that you want to start working on and developing is emotional agility. How many of us, like, that is the thing we have needed the most in this season,
COVID,
right?
Yeah.
Is being able to be a little bit more flexible, not so rigid in our thinking, not so rigid in our actions, but having that agility to one, identify what are we actually feeling, and then having more of a curiosity, a courageous outlook, and more compassion even towards ourselves and to others, to actually support the things that we value. and to start working on how to deal with our inner world. And almost a book that we've read a long time ago, and somebody we've worked with, is putting yourself almost in that observer's chair. That's one of the gifts we have as humans, is to be able to almost like look at ourselves from the outside and see like, okay, is this serving me? Is this how I want to be showing up? Or can I modify and shift and change and have that emotional agility to show up differently?
Yeah.
So these are so important. I don't know if anybody's actually going to feel a little bit courageous themselves and say like, what do you have as maybe a kind of tendency towards either avoiding, repressing, or stuffing? Maybe you dwell on things and you just have that negative loop going on all the time. Or maybe you're a spewer and you point blame and kind of play victim in some of these areas. I know for me, I kind of tended to be more of an avoider or a stuffer. And so I just almost would feel like I would have these like emotions piled up within me because I never actually dealt with any of them. And so they just would pile on and compound on each other.
And when they come out, you know,
then I was a spewer. Yeah, they can't all stay in there, right? So they're gonna find a way out. Exactly.
Yeah, and my tendency was to probably spew and to take everything on and everything related to everything, and so I was constantly victimizing myself, and everything would become a huge issue, right? And then that would stop any sort of growth or any sort of new information coming in, so I don't pay attention and I don't see the facts or hear all of the info, and then I make bad decisions because I don't have all the facts. And so that rigid type of mindset was not helping me at all. So
yeah, the other big thing to consider with this too, right, is we always talk about what are you doing and how is it playing a role in your inflammatory responses and in your cortisol levels and everything else, is when you hold on to all of these recycled thoughts and they're based around that self-guilt, that self-disgust, that remorse, that's what releases the cortisol and suppresses your immune system. So it's actually wreaking havoc on your metabolic and your inflammatory pathways. So that's another reason why we usually, again, if you hit kind of a wall and you're not making some progress, it's usually we say like, okay, tell me about your stress, tell me about your sleep, because those are usually some of those underlying factors of the cortisol levels because of our own thought patterns and the habits that we've been building even in that area too.
I see a lot of comments in here. I used to beat myself up trying to learn boundaries for better mental health. Ruminating, I would imagine that's like just playing the tape over and over in your head and everything, and not all of that is a way of sort of either directing it towards yourself or stuffing it. Right?
For sure. Yeah. And that's what I want to give pause to. I love Dr. A. He's always so good at this, of sometimes reminding us that, hey, this is not always all your fault. If you remember that from like when you first opened your book, of some of these like weight issues or some of these health issues, not all of these are your fault. Some of it is just kind of our ancient brain at work, even of what it was designed to do to protect. And so when you think back even of our 10,000-year-old brain, it was wired for survival. And it saw threats, and so it wanted to respond to those threats as quickly as possible and get out of danger. So that was even a confidence for me of like why I suppressed and why I avoided, of like, it's okay, you were just trying to like survive, you thought that was the best choice in that moment. And so back then, when it was like you had a wild animal after you or whatever, its response was always to overkill or overreaction, keep you safe, get you out of the way. Yeah. How many of you exactly that predictability? One of my boys' favorite movies is The Croods. Any other parents out there have seen that? It's kind of like this cave family. And in the movie, it was like everything is new is dangerous. Yeah. And so it was like, stay in the cave. We have to stay in the cave. And how many of us now, I think, can still almost live in that same pattern of like, everything's a threat. Like, we need to stay safe. Don't deal with this. Don't get out. And we're here to say like, no, guys, like we're looking for the new life. We're looking for the light. Let's get out of the cave and live a new way.
The only constant in this life is change, right? So it's like new is bad, change is bad, but that's never going to help you live your life, right? And we always are saying moving from just surviving, and it's kind of in a health sense. It's like, well, I'm not sick, but that doesn't mean you're healthy. So like, I'm not dead, but that doesn't mean you're living.
Exactly.
Right. And so being able to thrive and life is unpredictable. Meanwhile, unpredictable and unsafe. Right. And meanwhile, our brain are trying to create predictability and safety.
For sure.
Conflict.
But then we're allowed to say now again, okay, but I want more for my life. I want more for my family. I want more for my kids. And so we're born, when you think about this, even with only two real fears, of falling and loud noises. So all of these other fears that we develop are all programmed in either from experience or from somebody else kind of speaking them into your life. So those things of like fear of failure or even fear of success, which is a very real thing for, spiders, snakes, the dark, heights, they're all conditioned. So the nice thing with that, when you start to consider these, of identifying the only real fears we have are of falling and of loud noises, all these other ones that are programmed in can be unprogrammed, can be overrode, right? So we can start changing that course for ourselves and living differently. And so the new skill that we want to start working on is observing and releasing those emotions that we do have. We want to start building up that emotional intelligence where you can become more aware of your emotions and then command them to the areas that will support you and support your longer term goals. The thing is, emotions are supposed to actually kind of flow through us within usually like only a 90-second kind of span. They'll kind of almost like waves crashing where they have that, build up and then they'll crash out and then kind of recede. But many times the problem comes when we start interfering with them. And like I said, we either suppress them and don't allow them to actually flow through us. We hold on to them and grasp them and we don't let them go, all these other things. So the more you can start just having that awareness and preventing some of that loop, you're going to allow your emotions to actually flow and then be released out of you. And so
if it's taken longer than 90 seconds, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
you're doing not wrong. You're doing something else. So this is just as you start to peel back those layers of looking at what's going on, to know that if you're hanging on to stuff 20 years later, like we've talked about with me, something else is happening. And so that's good to start pulling on that and peeling back the layers.
Exactly. So we have even, Dr. Abelize puts it out in here too, of there's two emotional like opposing states. So there's either love or fear. So it's kind of almost like, which camp are you living in? But then researchers have also said that there are like 8 primary emotions. So that is anger, sadness, surprise, fear, acceptance, disgust, joy, and anticipation. Again, anybody, I'm like kid
You're
movie.
Gonna do it again, aren't you?
I know. I only think in kid movies. Who's seen Inside Out? And it is like such a great one of like who's got the control panels, right? And so those are the
Try
factors.
That new word that we learned.
These are some of the pure emotions. What causes problem is again when we start adding on. And so these are almost, if you think of it as like, these are your primary emotions or primary colors. And then if you've ever been an artist or started painting, you know that when you start adding other colors in, you can make these like secondary colors and they can be very beautiful or they can be very like you have the ugliest of black or brown because you've mixed all these other things in. So you might have these kind of pure emotions that will rise up. The problem comes again when we start attaching things in there that are more destructive, like the disgust, the shame, the rage. So that's what you want to really also be mindful of and start associating, okay, what is this that I'm actually feeling? And even if you use that iceberg analogy of this is what's showing up, but what is actually going on under the surface here?
Yeah,
a much deeper response too, right? When you can actually identify some of these core emotions and even the underlying ones that you've attached on, instead of just saying I'm fine. That's not going to serve anyone.
Because
that's not going to get
nobody really thinks you're fine.
Exactly. So to help yourself and even help your family or even your children, there's actually even an expanded list that Dr. A has on the habitsofhealth.com that you can go and print off. I think there's like 70 different emotions on there. So you can start identifying what is this that I'm actually feeling? And then what am I going to start doing with it? One of the biggest things that I would say we want you to start tracking through, just like we track, because this is what is going to go hand in hand with your health journey, with all of it, is start tracking your emotions too. I know you've been tracking maybe your food and your water and some of those other things. Start tracking your emotions too, because they tie together, right? So many times that those emotions are what is driving some of maybe the unhealthy choices that we were making in terms of how we were numbing out or those different things with food or drink.
Yeah, it's as if you're unaware. It's like being unaware of what you're putting in your mouth, right? We have very quickly helped you guys stop, challenge, and choose around what you're putting into your mouth. But this is sort of like thoughts that you're putting into actions, thoughts that you're assigning meaning to. And it's like being unaware. So that same sort of awareness of eating to now what thoughts we're thinking and what we're grabbing on and not just reacting with, being able to pause in between, that stop and challenge it.
For sure. And as you start tracking these emotions, know that there will probably be a lot of negative ones to start. Because again, when we talked about how our brains were programmed to see the threat, identify the threat, try to get away from the threat. That's what will probably start to surface as you become more aware of what are those 70,000 thoughts that have been circling and spinning in there. It's okay to recognize at first they will probably be more negative in nature, because that's just your brain's natural default setting. And so even if it's not necessarily anymore, we don't have those, animals attacking us or different things like that. We either have these real perceived or like perceived threats. Most times now they're more related to like our ego, how we feel about ourselves. And if we again have those negative 70,000 plus going around of shame and disgust and self-criticism, then it's no wonder we're going to start identifying those negative ones to start. But again, you can reprogram and create those new default settings for yourself, to start moving away from that maybe scarcity mindset or that negative feedback that you've been giving yourself. And so you can even start just asking, like, is this a helpful thought? Does this one serve me? You can start identifying sometimes if you're having a hard time identifying what is the actual emotion you're feeling, where are you feeling it in your body? Sometimes where is actually connected to what you're feeling.
There's a 15 Commitments of Conscious Leaders book. Yes, it's a leadership book, but he goes through a lot
really
of that.
Life related though.
Able to really become emotionally intelligent of like, if you had tons and tons of bits in your body, what are they doing? And if you work with children, or if you have children, or if you work with teenagers who don't know what their emotions are like and all that kind of stuff, these are ways to help describe it. What are the bits in your body doing? It's like, well, they're burning right now. And, this will help. These will help you guys come up with some ideas of what emotions you're feeling.
For sure. So sometimes anger tend to be more associated, or you feel it in like your jaw, your neck, your shoulders, your back. Fear, we often feel like in our gut, right? Sadness, we usually feel in our eyes, in our throat, or even like in our heart, like area of our chest. And so sometimes it can just be so powerful. Again, what you were saying of like, where are you feeling it? Because that sometimes can just help them locate what is the feeling itself. One of the best practices you can do even is like just sitting in a chair, taking a couple of like really great deep cleansing breaths for yourself, and then start almost scanning, like think of it like a laser scanning your whole body of like, where's the emotion and what's it doing? Is there a sound? Is there a color? Is there a temperature? Where does it move and how does it leave your body? How long does it last? Because again, then you'll even probably start testing out this theory of like, okay, if I let emotion flow through me without interfering with it, does it actually truly flow through within that 90-second period? And then you'll start to recognize your patterns of, okay, where do I release it? Where does it tend to want to hold on to?
Yeah. Or, the fact that if you've never released it, if you've never let it flow through you, he calls it sort of a river of life. And the way that it's been explained to me, it's like you're on the shore and you're just watching these things go by. There's no issue with them going by and having these emotions, right? It's when you grab onto it, that's when you're actually acting in that time, that reaction. So you're taking those emotions, and those emotions are coming out of your mouth, they're coming out of your fists, they're like you are in that emotion, in that raft, if you want to call it that. But if you're back on the shore, it's just watching it go by,
Letting it flow.
Just let it go sometimes. And that's sort of a good visual that I've used in the past.
Exactly. So you can start practicing some of these daily even, and asking yourself, okay, why am I feeling this? What's the emotion telling me? How is this affecting what is important to me? Some of the best questions, I went through a book by, I think it's Byron Katie, called Loving What Is. And the 4 questions she asked, and I'll be sure to put it in a picture on our comments down here below too, but is this true? Sometimes just testing some of these thoughts that come up can be so helpful before the thoughts actually even become the emotions. And so you can capture them then before, again, that even starts leading to some of the behaviors or leading to some of the habits. So asking yourself, is this true? Okay, is this without a doubt? Absolutely. I can know it to be true. Like if it was presented in a court of law, if it was presented in a laboratory, is this fact, right? Really starting to test that out. And then number 3 is, how do I react when I believe that thought? That one's one of the like big shifters, right? Of like, sure, I might maybe even know this to be a little bit true, but how am I reacting when I believe that thought? And then number 4 is one of the most powerful as well, is who would I be without this thought?
Those 3.
How do I react when that happens, when I believe that thought? And then number 4 is, who would I be without this thought? And then at the end, you can even give it like a turnaround statement of, could the opposite of this be true? Maybe again, if you're in that self-criticism of like, gosh, I'm not good enough, or I'm never going to get there. Okay, well, is that true? Is that absolutely true? How do I react when I believe that thought? Well, I start sabotaging myself, and I start choosing things that are off plan, or I start, lashing out at the people I care about, or I start withdrawing from my coach. Okay, well, but who would I be without that thought? Well, I would probably be, again, maybe get more engaged in the community. Maybe I would follow the program a little bit closer because I would think it could actually help me reach my goals. I would probably, not be so critical of myself and not hate on myself so much, and start living as if it was true that I could create this for myself. So give the opposite a chance to be true, and see if actually that's probably more true than the actual thought that you were clinging onto and even believing for yourself. Because the big thing too is emotional mastery. That's where you're going to allow yourself to feel all the emotions, but you're going to be properly deciding what am I going to do with them? Which ones am I clinging to and I'm actually going to hold on to and believe? And which ones do I need to just, like Brandon said, let flow out, flow through that river and just pass me by? I love this other phrase too, or this quote. It says, "The weak is he who permits his thoughts to control his actions. Strong is he who forces his actions to control his thoughts." And how many of us could really start even clinging on to that truth, right?
I got one more thing too, because we want you guys to be able to be emotionally literate. That's the first stage. And then to be able to use the emotions. Because here's the thing, I always wrestle with this, and you might not go this deep. I typically go too deep. This isn't stoicism. This isn't like you will not be emotional. You will be, and we are not robots, right? We have emotions for a reason. They will tip you off. You have instincts, right? There are emotions that will serve you. It's like if you didn't have pain, you wouldn't realize you're bleeding to death in some cases. And so we want you to have emotions, and we want you to use them. It's what makes human life so beautiful. And it's when you try to stuff it all because you don't have a healthy relationship with the emotions that it becomes really difficult. So finding out how to be literate in them, but then also using them, like waking up. And this is part of the, in the pages, in the end of the element, where you wake up with gratitude. You wake up, that's an emotion. That's okay. You can have that emotion, waking up in gratitude, being grateful, thankful, seeing beautiful things and having like a gratitude behind it is really, really helpful. I tend to use music to get me in an emotional state to do certain things, right? Or I create emotions in my house based on the music that I'm listening to, or the things that I want to do that day, or just the stuff that I want to think about. So you can utilize these emotions to be good for you. If you're at work, like it's focus, it's really getting clear on, back to element 4, what you're doing, why you're doing it, and having those emotions drive you. It's being it's being aware of what is driving you and not letting anything get in that way. That's what we call focus. Yep. Right? And so having the skills to be literate, but then also having the skills to channel those emotions, to create those emotions so that you have energy, right? It's funny, he talks about how he hears himself, Dr. A hears himself making all of these statements in his head, and he just laughs at them now. He says, wow, how much energy I was expending in trying to be right or prove myself or something ego related, right? And now he's got energy to actually do what he wants. So you don't waste the energy in the old patterns, and you channel that energy, and the energy comes from the emotions. It's okay to come from the emotions. And like I said before, it's not stoicism where you're just not going to be an emotional person. It's just, does that emotion
letting
serve
it channel
you?
In the right way. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I was going to read
that's all I wanted to say.
a very small excerpt. Some scrolls. This is from The Greatest Salesman in the World. I did not read this book for so many years because I just hated the title, because I was like, ooh, salesman. Like, why would I want to read anything about that? But in it has these scrolls that are so powerful and so empowering. And so just one of my favorite things that I read, if sometimes you just, again, with that, finding the opposite, can the opposite be true? Or can I even, if I'm feeling this way, can I create the opposite?
Shift, yeah.
Exactly. Is if I feel depressed, I will sing. If I feel sad, I will laugh. If I feel ill, I will double my labor. If I feel fear, I will plunge ahead. If I feel inferior, I will wear new garments. If I feel uncertain, I will raise my voice. If I feel poverty, I will think of wealth to come. If I feel incompetent, I will remember past success. If I feel insignificant, I will remember my goals. Hold on to that one, maidenly. Today, I will master my emotions. This is on page 80, Amy, of the book. But yeah, there's so many like amazing things. So isn't that funny how much, we can judge a book by its title and let it hold you back for so long. But anyways, guys, I hope that this served today. I hope you got some new nuggets of truth and nuggets of wisdom that you will be able to start implementing into your own journey, or even empowering your family and loved ones too. But one of the biggest things is, start tracking those emotions, start looking for trends, and even shifting. Like if you see some unhealthy patterns start to arise, don't treat it with that, self, guilt or shame or destruction, but shift it over to like, okay, be curious, be open, put on your lab coat even, and start running some experiments for yourself of how can we shift this? How can we change? What are some of the elements that we can bring in to layer this in and change that course? But I just love every Monday with you guys.
We have 3 more elements left.
Crazy.
Just 3. Today we're not going to start. We're not going to talk about it. But as you go through this, maybe in the next couple of weeks, as you tune back in, put in the comments, put in the chat if you want us to start over at element 1 again. We find value in that. It's helpful to go through this over and over and over again, because you're going to get different things from this at different times. But just keep that in mind of like, if we're going to start this over again, put that in the comments in the chats. What would you prefer?
For sure. And feel free to tag any of your friends if they missed out on the Lifebook Lunch Break. I know not everybody can participate in these live, but definitely always, make sure that they are aware that they're going on. We always have them all filed in the files section even, so you can go back and watch all the past elements as well and get caught up. So anyways, guys, we will see you back next Monday. Loved having today with you guys, and we'll see you back.